Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Breaking the Ceiling. Today I'm going to be talking to somebody who doesn't require an introduction. She's an icon. She started a new revolution around a product that we have never heard about in India before. I'm talking about none other than the queen of Macaron, Pooja Dhingra, who's the founder of Le15. Hey Pooja, welcome to the show.
Thank you for the great introduction.
And I'm so glad that you got something like the macaroon to the country. That was just fantastic. I mean, I don't remember ever reading about macaroons in India before that and tasting them. So before we dive into Lay 15, tell me about your life before Lay 15.
My life before Le15. As I'm a Bombay girl, I grew up here. I went to school at Bombay Scottish. Then I went to Jenin College for 2 years. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Went to law school for 2 weeks. I can't even count that as anything. And then somewhere told my parents I knew that I didn't want to do law, and I spoke to my parents and said that I really think that food and the culinary space is something for me. And they said, cool, you need to get an education. You can do whatever you want in life, but studies are important.
Okay.
We went to the same school.
Yeah, we both from Bombay Scotland. Yeah. Your brother is a classmate.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
small world.
Small world, yeah.
Yeah.
And then that led me to hospitality in Switzerland, which then led me to pastry school in Paris, and no looking back.
No looking back.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I think your life in Paris must have played a very large role in who you've become today
Yeah.
and the experience.
Yeah. And it's crazy because every time I go back, right, like when you haven't been to the city, and like, a city can really change you. And I think that Paris did that for me, not only in the pastry and the food, but the way of life, the attention to detail, the packaging, the experiences, all of that. And, like I took that away. And every time I go back, it's kind of like a reassurance that this is the feeling. So I love going back because it kind of just connects me to that feeling.
Awesome.
But yeah.
So tell me about what made you think of the concept of macaroons. How did you think of it?
So, it sounds like a very cheesy story, and it kind of is, but I was in Paris. I'd spent 4 years in Switzerland, and then I moved to France, and I was living with a French roommate. And we were at a party, and they were all like, oh, what are you girls doing here? And I said, I'm studying pastry. And they were like, oh, have you tried this mogador? I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, you are a friend, you're in France to study pastry, you've never had macaroons. And I was like, no, what is it? And then they described it to me. And the flavor they were talking about, the mogador, is a passion fruit and chocolate flavor. Mm-hmm. So they sent me to, this PMA store, and I stood in line and I was like, what is the fuss? They look like mini burgers, very expensive. But I bought it, and then I stood outside and I took one bite and I was like, wow. I think that whole experience of experiencing a pastry shop in that manner, we were so used to brownies, cookies, donuts, that kind of pastry. But actually looking at pastry and seeing it as art, and, the pastry chef is an artist. And to me, that was incredible. And yeah, one bite, and I was like, ये इंडिया में क्यों नहीं है? And then my dad was visiting and I made him try it. And my dad is that guy, he's that guy who travels abroad and will want Indian food. And like he like so I was like, if he likes it and his palate likes it, I'm sure most people will love it. And he loved it. And he said, why aren't we doing this in India? So
Awesome.
that's how it's
And tell me the story behind the name.
the name. So I still remember, like, my best ideas come to me when I'm running or like I'm working out, because I think you just some sort of zone. So I still remember I was on the treadmill one day and I was running, and it was like time to name this company. And I knew that it had to do with Paris. I knew it had to do with my love for Paris. And I lived in the 15th arrondissement when I was there, which is the 15th quartier. And I just felt like for that 1 year that that neighborhood was my home. I knew all the local cafe owners, the restaurateurs. I would walk to my local bakery, buy my baguette, and I just felt like this is home, and I wanted people to have that piece of Paris and feel exactly like that. Mm. So it's named after the neighborhood. Yeah.
And have you gone back to your school where you studied after that?
Yeah, I go back. Before COVID, I used to go back every year. I'm still in touch with all of them, and it's amazing. So before before I went to school, I was like when I was in Paris, I was the only Indian girl or only Asian, only Indian girl in the whole school. And now they're like, every batch has like 20. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. So somebody started a revolution. I just joked with them, I was like, man, I should have just charged commission. I wouldn't have to work now. But they're really sweet. They have like, I think it was for me, that was one of my biggest honors as well, was to see there's a wall of alumni in at the Auto, and you have like Julia Child, and you have like, oh my, Astrid and Gaston, like the famous chefs from Peru and stuff. And I'm like, my photo and name is part of it. So it feels like you're part of some sort of legacy, which is great. That is fantastic. I think building that kind of legacy also puts so much, I think, somewhere a little pressure on you, right? Do you ever feel that? Because I've never really thought of, Acha, yeah, I'm doing this, so I'm working towards that. I've always just followed and said that, okay, this is the next best thing, the next best thing. I've never pulled myself out and been like this. So I've never felt that pressure. I did feel some of the pressure last year when COVID hit, and then it was like, now I built this business and now I have to shut down half of it. How do I deal with it? So I did feel it then. And when you started out, what kind of challenges did you face? Oh, yeah, like I feel like the challenges never end. Um, so many. I was so young. I was so naive. I didn't know any better. I didn't understand. Like I'm a creative person. I do well with flavors and recipes and techniques. And then suddenly I had this business to run and manage a team. And suddenly, like, as much as I had like innate leadership qualities, etc., to actually like run a workplace, is a whole different ballgame. So I had to like unlearn so many things and learn them again. I think dealing with the team was difficult. Hiring was a really big challenge. These were all internally, just setting processes, consistency, making sure everything is the same every single day. Those were internal challenges, and then externally, obviously, because I was so young, this young girl in this male-dominated field, so like not being taken seriously, from I take my father everywhere to speak to our landlords and this and that. So it was a lot in the initial years, and then I just, my view in life is that you can either like hold on to that and let that drag you down, or be like, yeah, this exists, and I have to somehow like overcome this and find some way to kind of jump across it. So I took my dad everywhere. I was like, you want to meet him? He's an amazing person. And I'm lucky that I have that. I'm lucky that I have that. And it's a true privilege that I can't deny that I have. And I was just like, please, he's a businessman. People feel comforted when they see him. They feel like he gives some sort of like stability to what I do. And I was like, if that's what you need to see, then take it, Why not? Yeah. So what you mentioned earlier, like that thing is there and it exists, and you have to learn to coexist with it. It reminds me of the basis of Stoicism, right? Your Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and all these guys, where they talk about that you cannot change what happens to you, but how you react to it. So when you said that, like, it just all my learning of Stoicism kept like running back. So tell me a little bit about through, like, I think you've gone maybe Le15 has gone through maybe a couple of different versions. At each of those stages, what were your proud moments? Like when you're just a startup, then you're in that growing phase, and now you're at that hyper growth phase, adding new stores and things. So what were your proud moments during the year? It's always been about, I tell this a lot to the team, and for me, I feel like our purpose is really about joy. And it's the small moments, like for someone trying Macaron for the first time, or someone coming and saying, oh, these are better than the ones that we've had in Paris, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. And yeah, being part of people's like happy moments, memories, baking for, like, I have a dream list of people that when I started, that these are the kind of these are the people that I would love to have as customers, and I've probably checked all of them off that list. Fantastic. Yeah, so it's like getting those. I'm young, getting those calls, and like Deepika Padukone is calling you, and you're making Ratan Tata's cake, and you're in Salman Khan's farmhouse. Like, you're 23. They're like insane experiences that no one kind of prepares you for. So those were obviously really great, but then also just I think for me, I think I'm most proud of how we tackled the COVID situation with, you know, at a point where everything could have I could have lost everything. And I was kind of ready for it. I actually have like a pros and cons list for shutting everything down and keeping it. But, it's been a whole year and we've not only been like the most profitable we've ever been, but I feel like I've changed as a person, as a leader, my outlook on life. There's still a long way to go, but I just feel like, okay, the wheels are in motion and you can feel that momentum and you feel like you're in the right place and just have to be patient and work towards it. So yeah, many highs, many lows. I mean, so many lows.
So many lows as an entrepreneur.
Lows. I've had people steal from me, have forge my check, my signature on checks. Like it's been like, like as a young girl who's like living in a bubble, and then you have all these things happen to you, and then you're like, okay, how could I change this, and where was this my? So also learning to take ownership of things that happen to you. So I think those are the things that I know your questions are just.
So I know you're doing a lot of new things. New book is launched. Yay! That was awesome. I unfortunately don't have a copy. I would love to show a copy, but I'll definitely bring it up on screen, and we'll have a link in the description.
It's out in October, so no one has a copy.
Okay, nobody has a copy. So we put a I'm very sure there's a pre-booking link.
Yes.
There's a pre-booking link. Okay, and so after this, I'm going to go book my copy myself. So, tell me about a few of your upcoming projects, upcoming ideas that you're playing with. A couple of them I'm aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, and you and your company played a big part in some of that, which was actually making changing our products. How do we add shelf life to it? And as a pastry chef, you know how to do things with eggs, flour, sugar, but now something has to be shelf stable and it has to be shippable and all of those things. So, that has been quite a challenge, but very exciting to also get that same sort of flavor, texture, all of that. So, Le15, the packaged goods is one part, the fresh, like the patisserie is one part, growing both of those parallelly. And then just my personal stuff, like I love writing. So books that are coming up, Coming Home is coming next. It's coming soon. I have my YouTube channel, which I've kind of let it go, but I'm bringing that back up. Awesome. I'm doing a new pastry series. I don't know when is this episode going live.
I think in about 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay, yeah. So by then it'll be out. But I'm doing this really cool pastry series where every week a pastry chef is coming and teaching me something new.
Oh, cool.
I feel like learning is the only way to grow, right? And you can never know everything. And the last time I was in school was when I was 23. And so much has happened in the pastry world since, and I keep trying to go back every year and learn. And I'm just like, man, I have access to like such amazing chefs in this city, in this country eventually when I can travel. And I'm like, every week, one of you comes and teaches me something brand new, and we
oh my God, that's inspirational. I'm so steal that. I don't know how, I don't know where. I'm definitely using that idea.
It's called Top Pastry to me, and it's out on the 1st of October. So.
Awesome. So I love that concept that even though you're literally on the top of your game, you still have the self-awareness that there are so many things you don't know, and you're asking people, maybe even with lesser experience, of course with more experience, even with lesser experience coming and teaching you. I think that requires a very open mind and a very self-aware mind. So last month I launched this concept called the Leadership Club.
That was WhatsApp group.
The WhatsApp group is right, and it's going well.
Yeah.
People are actually contributing. The admin is charging them $100 fee if they don't contribute.
I want to get it.
Okay. There is a group link waiting at the end of this, right? But you'll be surprised to see what are people sharing, like junior people, senior people, the amount of things that they share. Personal learnings, professional learnings, it is absolutely crazy. And when people don't share for 2-3 days and the admin will DM them saying, hey, pay the money, they're like, yeah, take the money, but don't kick me out of the group, please. Because like, if I'm not contributing, I'm learning so much. Imagine learning from 29 other people every day, getting an insight, right? That's just absolutely crazy. And the other day, I got an insight from somebody. I applied it in my life, applied it in business, and I could see the benefit of it. Two, when I am trying to put together my learning and putting it down in words and sharing it, I realized I applied a lot more myself.
Because so many times you know how things work and how you do something, but when someone asks you to explain it, you're like, oh, how do I do this? And then
Exactly. And so that has been fantastic because once we start writing things down to share, you kind of reaffirm it in your own
Yeah,
mind, right?
yeah.
And then you actually start applying it. The 3-4 days ago, my learning was you can grow as much as you want if you're willing to have more difficult conversations.
Yeah.
When I shared this, that very day, I had 5 difficult conversations, and 4 of them turned out to blossom the relationship further, explore whether the clients, whether the teammates, and it was just fantastic. And so, tell me about what advice would you go back in time and give yourself right when you were starting with the team? One piece of advice you'd give to yourself.
I feel like that's a very good question. I feel like um, for me, especially, I would just say take more control of your finances. Like I would tell because I've been burned so badly. I also I want to be like compassionate towards myself because I had so much on my plate. And I felt like if one part of it is handled by somebody else, it would be better. But I feel like for most, if whoever, if you're a young entrepreneur starting a business, and I know you're passionate about something else, and then you feel like, oh, but the money and this and creativity. No, the purpose of business is to make money. Remember that, no matter what you're doing. Okay, so I would advise myself to just look at money differently.
Okay. And I think that is something most entrepreneurs don't focus on.
Yeah.
They actually don't focus on 2 things: money, and two, they don't focus on marketing, right? Which brings me to the next piece. Your marketing and PR skills are one of the best I know. I've publicly gone on record. Must have said it 50 times that Pooja is my PR mentor. I'm learning from her. The way you handled PR right from the beginning. It's not that after you became successful, PR has played a role. The way right from the beginning you handled it, I think it's just come. I mean, at least it looks like to an outsider that's coming so naturally.
But honestly, the thing is that I don't really, a lot of people ask me this, right? And I find it very difficult to kind of explain because I don't think I do anything extraordinarily different, or maybe that's not. I'm a hospitality student, it's what we do. We are like, that's uh, it's the way, and the career that I've chosen is about happiness and joy and warmth and love. So I feel like the minute you give someone a box of like goodies, it's already like you make somebody happy. But I just feel like if you are like you said about the hard conversations, right? I think as long as you stay true and authentic to who you are, and you're not afraid to have those hard conversations when needed to, stick to your word. So I feel like that's very important. I don't like flaky people. I don't like people who commit to one thing and then, just like
Do something.
don't. I think you stay true to your word. So I think if you build that kind of life of like excellence and following through with what you set out to do, a lot of things fall into place and you don't need to really try hard to kind of um yeah.
And I love how you build a very close knit community around yourself and the product, and I think just around foodies,
Yeah.
right? And there is so much interaction that people, like I was looking at a few of your posts the other day. The kind of love that they have for you is because I think the same authenticity, right? And I think you had only mentioned in our last conversation that when I was talking to you about when I was going to start using Instagram more and my handle was different. You said, Ashwin, no, you can't have a different handle. It has to be your name. It can't be something else. It can't be quotes of a workaholic. It has to be your name. And then you have to do more videos. And I realized that that is what is important because that is what builds that relationship. Even 1 to 1 million is that authenticity, right? And that has been fantastic. So that brings me to my next question. What is the one superpower that you have that many people may be aware of or may not be aware of?
I just feel like I can get a lot done very far, like in the day. I don't know, like I just I speak to friends, and the other day I was talking to somebody else and they were like, how many hours do you have in the day? And I said, firstly, we all have the same hours as Beyonce does. So I don't know, I just feel like maybe that's a superpower then, because I just have that thing to, okay, I wake up, I know I can do this, and after that I'm like, yeah, I want to go meet my friends and I want to do this and I want to do that. And I'm just like this energizer bunny on most days. Some days I'm dead, but I want to work out and then I want to go have dinner with my friends and, all of that. And there are some days where I don't want to do anything and I don't want to see anybody. But for the most part, I feel like that is a superpower.
I think if more people are able to pull off as much as you do. And before COVID, I used to have a very crazy day. But at the end of the day, I used to always feel that I haven't achieved much. So I used to reach office at 9, I used to be in office till 7. And at end of 7, when I'm getting in the car, getting back home, and if I ever thought, okay, hey, what did I achieve? I used to always get this sense of like, I don't know about how the day went, because I used to spend 2 to 3 hours with one team, ignoring something else completely. But COVID has helped me
Same.
structure myself
Same.
so well.
And now I'm like, also earlier it was this whole thing of like, I'm gonna do this, and was this whole like race. And I think with COVID, it was just about like what is doing the, especially for us, for me, especially, it was like doing the least amount of things, but which would give you the most amount of impact. And I'm doing exactly that now, and it's amazing. And it's, it's, yeah. What's your superpower?
My superpower. Oh my God. Okay. I think my superpower would be dreaming big. I don't know if that's a superpower.
It is.
It
Of
is.
course,
I
yeah.
mean, so I remember we were in our first office was in Prabhadeli, right? And was this 300 square foot office where my cabin, I could touch the ends of the cabin with both my hands, right? And at that point, my wallpaper was this 25, 30,000 square foot building, which I paid a guy, he had caricatured. I told him, okay, do it like this. I want 3, 4 floors, and I want it like this, and I want it that way. And that was my wallpaper. And I remember my very senior team member of mine used to always ask me, like, what is that? I'm like, that's going to be my next office. And anyone who has to tell that to people is like, are you crazy? Like, this like 300 square foot office, this lab is like so small. What are you talking about? From there, we grew from one office to two, two to four, four to eight. I think at the end we had 12. But these small offices, and I always wanted my own building. And 8 years ago, we inaugurated that exact same building. And on the day of the inauguration, the same teammate was there, and he came to my cabin, and he was like, "Where's your next wallpaper?" And this power of thinking big, visualization, was taught to me by none other than Robin Sharma. So his big takeaway, that when I spent time with him, his biggest takeaway for me was, he's like, you need to write down and visualize where you want to go as a person and as an organization, and that you need to be able to share with people. So I think ability to share a future version of where you want to be, having that larger than life vision and sharing it with somebody, I think that is
World domination.
domination. Tell me about work-life balance. I know you have a crazy schedule, and I know you have a lot of fun, but do you feel you have a good work-life balance? Are you?
I think COVID changed that for everybody and for me as well. I finish work by 6:30. I leave the office. And then after that, I do my own thing. I see my friends, I work out, I have dinner at home, invite friends over. Now that I live alone, a lot of my friends come over. And I think it's important to take that time off. Just, I know as entrepreneurs, it's difficult to switch off and you're constantly thinking about work, but you have to make that like hard stop, because otherwise it's you're just gonna burn out and drive yourself crazy. And yeah, it's sometimes it's challenging, but I've made it a priority that relationships and friendships and everything get, because at the end of the day, what nothing else matters. Yeah.
Uh, the other day on LinkedIn, there was a thread on entrepreneurship, and as entrepreneurs, how much sacrifices you have to make. Over there, I put a comment, and I just put it as an innocuous comment saying that, hey, when I started Equinox, I focused so much on work. I didn't look at time. I didn't look at my health. I didn't spend enough time with my family. I didn't spend enough time on any personal passions. I didn't have any personal passion, because my personal passion was Equinox. But I said, now, in the last 2.5 years, I do spend time on my health. I've lost almost like 20 kgs. I've been the healthiest right now in my life. I spend 5 times more time with my kids than I used to. Earlier, I used to spend like 15, 20, 30 minutes at best. Nowadays, I spend 2.5 hours with my kids. And actually, I have time for personal passion projects, right? And I think that is a big work-life balance achievement.
But Ashwin, I think that I say this a lot myself as well, right? Like the first 3, 4 years of Le15, exactly the same. I mean, I probably gained so much weight because I was, just eating sugar all day and not like taking care of my health.
Yeah.
working really hard with Le15, like maybe 14, 15, 16 hours a day. It was a small team. I missed my like cousins' weddings. I missed friends. Like it was like, no, I lost touch with all the friends I had then. But it's great to be now, say that, acha, we should have had. But would you have been able to build Equinox the way you did if you didn't put in that time and effort?
That's my point.
So I wouldn't have. I
Of
wouldn't.
course.
And the thing is that now after putting in that work, I can say, okay, now I have time to do X, Y, Z. But to start a business and just expect it to, unless you're like three, four people, and I was
You have a lot of co-founders.
yeah, I was a solo founder. So for me, it was very challenging. And I did have to put in a lot of work, and there was no work-life balance, which I don't recommend, obviously. But I also feel like if I hadn't done that in the initial years, I don't know if I would have got that head start as I did. So it's always like a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. No, so the initial first 4 to 5 years, you need to put in those 14, 15-hour days, because if you don't, you're going to be lacking that much more behind, right? You may get to where you will get to, you'll just get there much later. Like instead of 5 years, you may get there in 8 years or 10 years, right? And so that's actually something one of my mentors taught me, right? When I was feeling that pressure of like, I'm doing these 15, 16-hour days, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, so it wasn't just Equinox Labs that I was building a few other things as well. And that's when he actually told me that it's okay. Like, but if you want to build multiple businesses, or if you want to even grow one business, you need to put in that time, right? And when he like spelled it out, I was like, you know what, if I want to become a successful entrepreneur, it's a part of the journey, right? So tell me about mentors in your life.
Yeah. At different parts, of my career, I've had different people that were mentoring me. And I just think that that relationship is something that is so, um, it's not something that you can force. It's not something that you can say, hey, mentor me. It just sometimes just happens naturally. And I'm lucky to have that in my life. I also, the one thing that changed my life completely was getting a leadership coach. And I've told you about this, but there's just so many things that you don't know how to articulate. There's so many feelings. You are now responsible for 70, 80, 100 other people. You're also human. So how are you dealing with your own insecurities, your own anger issues, your own issues? And yeah, and building a team. So for me, having someone who could pull me out a little bit and show me how things work was very important. And I think if that's something that you can do, I would highly recommend coaching because it was a game changer.
Awesome. I also read somewhere that you're mentoring.
Yes,
We are talk about that.
yeah. So I mean, it's called the Younger Sister Program. A friend's sister started it, and I'm kind of helping her with it. And yeah, I just don't want girls to make the same mistakes that I made when I was, younger. And I wish I had someone to give me that kind of advice. So yeah, we're just putting together groups of, women, girls that we'll be talking through over time and
Fantastic.
mentoring them online.
Tell me about your personal 5 year goal and their 15 cycle.
I would have an answer before, but after COVID, I'm like, maybe not the best time since I'm fundraising to say it. No, I always used to joke and say world domination, and I didn't ever think what that meant. I didn't think of what kind of work and effort that would take to kind of come alive. I now have an idea, so I would still say world domination, more sort of conviction because now I know what that means. I would love to see Le15 in most cities in India.
In Paris.
In fact, so yeah, my team says Paris. Obviously, I mean, I'd love that too. But let's start with I want to see it in India and then abroad as well. Let's see where we go with it.
Awesome. Okay, so last question. What advice would you give entrepreneurs entering the hospitality space, the food space? What is the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Have patience and truly understand why you're doing what you're doing because it is a tough industry. And if you don't know what you're doing and why you're in this, it can get really challenging. And I think people expect to, you see everything on social media and you expect everything to happen overnight. Know that everyone's journeys have taken them time and years and decades to get where they are. So patience and yeah, just
patience and purpose and smile. I absolutely love that. So every time I've spoken to you, I take so much away. And so initially, guys, this was supposed to be a video interview. We did a video interview. She was supposed to be the first video that went live, but unfortunately there was a glitch and it didn't come out well. So that's the reason we shifted to an in-person format, and we've been planning it for such a long time, right? And Pooja, the last thing I want to share with you, and this is an observation that I have had of you from a long time. Even before we met, right? I've been observing Le15 as a customer, but I've also been looking at it as a brand and you as a person. And you've achieved some phenomenal heights, and I think it's not just because of a superior product. Your macaroons are hands down the best. You've diversified tarts and other things. You had your first shop, you had your cafe, you had a book. And when I've seen all of this, I've also seen you as an entrepreneur, change from this, wide-eyed girl who probably didn't know what the hell was happening to somebody who has, control over her business, is growing it purposefully, meaningfully. And I'm so proud, that the Equinox could have been a little part of the journey.
You're going to be a big part now, so I'm going to keep annoying you. So,
and it's been so fantastic to see you evolve as a person, right? And as a sales entrepreneur, I've been an angel investor in the past. I study entrepreneurship. I study people, and for the companies I didn't invest in, I did follow up, and I do follow up now also to see where they are at and what did I make the right choice, wrong choice. And it finally comes down to the team. It comes down to the founder. It comes down to the founding team, right? So tell me about. The team at Le15. I know you've had a lot of interesting people, coming and helping out.
Yeah.
And so tell me how did that work?
The team, I think I would really say that I'm so proud of how far we've come in this last 1 year. We went from 100 people, we went down to 30 at COVID. It was heartbreaking because we had to. And then now we're back at 70. We hired a lot of people back again. And suddenly it was last year where everyone just grew up. So whatever everyone was taking for granted, or suddenly it was all our livelihoods depend on this, and the future of this company depends on this. And suddenly everyone just stepped up. And I also love seeing the change in them every day. I love seeing how their thought process has evolved. I don't spoon feed anymore. I would say, okay, this is the problem statement, how you will solve it. Tell me what you'll do, and then I'll tell you what I think. And it's amazing to see them, putting all these different thinking hats and coming up with answers. So I'm super proud of this team. I have about 7, 8 managers under me for different departments who handle different things, and we're building each one, we're building each one's capacity out as we go. But yeah, it's a phenomenal team, and I'm hoping to add to it so that I can do more of the creative part, and all of this can kind of be on autopilot. I don't know if that ever happens.
You would always think that it happens.
Like at what point? I remember when I first started Le15, a friend of mine came and said, okay, so when are you going to get out? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, the whole point of starting a business is that you pull yourself out of it and it should function like a machine. And I'm like, kabhi hoega, kabhi. So the goal for me over the next 3 years is to pull myself out of this and really get a team that is so much smarter than me, so much more experienced than me, and who can take this to heights that I don't even know how to take it. And then I can work on, the creative aspect and product and things that I'm really good at. So hoping that happens.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I know Le15 is going to be achieving amazing heights. I am so happy and proud that Equinox is playing a little part in it, and I'm going to whatever I can personally to also make sure that
Yes.
Le15 reaches
Can you give
international.
us your money? Just give
I
us your
wish.
money. You said you're an investor. This conversation has turned.
I said angel seed. You don't need seed, right? No, but I'm so happy, and I'm seeing it diversify. I'm seeing it grow, and I'm so happy to hear that 5-year goal is an international presence, national presence, and I know that there is so much we can do to help you, and I'm personally and professionally going to help you in every way I can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being such a lovely guest, such a lovely friend, and such a lovely mentor. You're my PR mentor, and I keep writing it for that, right? So, guys, that was Pooja Dhingra. She's such an amazing person, and she's always the life of the party. And most importantly, I think she's an amazing leader, and she has evolved so much, and there's so much you can learn from her. If you watch this video, go write down 2 or 3 things that you've learned from her, and you can apply in your life, and that will hopefully help you break a few more ceilings. Thanks a lot, and have a fantastic week. See you in the next one.